It all starts in the most unexpected way. Ji-hoon, a man drowning in debt, sitting in a train station, is approached by a well-dressed stranger. This man smiles politely and offers him a strange challenge: flip a paper tile to win money. Every time Ji-hoon loses, the stranger slaps him harder and harder again. But Ji-hoon keeps playing. Eventually, he wins. And instead of just handing over the cash, the man slides him a mysterious business card. On it, a simple shape, a circle, a triangle, square, and a phone number. He says, "Call if you want to change your life." That moment is the first step into a game where the stakes are higher than anyone could imagine. A game where losing means death, and winning might mean losing your soul. It is Squid Game, one of the best Netflix series of all time. I'm sure, guys, you all watched it. 1982. In Busan, South Korea, Jong-kyun, a 12-year-old Korean kid, had been living with his mother and had gone to a nearby town with a neighbor. While alone, two police officers approached Jong and brought him to a police station. The kid Jong just disappeared from that moment. Same year, Troy, a 14-year-old kid, was stopped on his way home from school. A police officer searched his bag and discovered a half-eaten piece of bread. He accused him of stealing it. This poor kid was tortured, burned, and beaten. Finally, he was pressured into admitting something he never did. We have Miss Lee. She was 7-year-old at the time. She was with her brother. Their father left them with a police officer to buy something, and they just disappeared. Another victim, Yoon Sing-moo, 15-year-old Korean kid. He was working in a Chinese restaurant in Seoul. Then he went for a day trip to Busan. He was alone, carrying some savings. The police officers stopped him, accusing him for stealing money. Then he disappeared, just like the others. I know, a lot of questions you guys posing, like what happened to these kids? What are police officers doing? So behind these walls, thousands of people, many of them innocent, were trapped, beaten, and forced to work. This is the story of Brothers' Home, South Korea's house of horrors, told throughout the voices of those who lived it. So basically, Jong, Miss Lee, Choi, Yoon-sung, and many other children, women, men, and teenagers were forced to go to Brothers' Home. So we gotta first answer this question: what is Brothers' Home? Basically, it was a government-authorized welfare facility in Busan, South Korea. Established in 1976, it was officially run by a private operator named Park In-kun, but it was under the supervision of South Korean Ministry of Health and Social Affairs and local Busan authorities. What is the purpose of this welfare center? So basically, because it's a welfare center, it made to provide shelter, food, and basic care for homeless people, vagrants, orphans, and those unable to support themselves. Also to rehabilitate individuals throughout vocational training and work programs. And finally, reduce street homeless and beautify public areas by removing beggars and street children. It seems like a wonderful, peaceful place, right? Because this is the image the Korean government presented to the public. You have to know, it was never meant for these reasons. Everyone went to Brothers' Home was just forced to it. It was a tragedy for humanity, a place where unspeakable crimes took place. Let me tell you more. To start, everybody loaded onto a large truck and taken away. What does it remind you of? You should think of Squid Game, right? The same truck. They were thrown into a place they had never seen before, a vast compound with 30-foot higher walls, in which they give to each one of them an identical uniform. On it a number that differentiates each one of them. It means that simply everyone goes by number, not by names. Again, like Squid Game, and taking pictures of them like they're in gel. Inside Brother's home, life was nothing like what people were told. The rooms were small, cold and crowded. Dozens of people were forced to live together, sleeping in bunk beds, placed so close there was hardly any space to walk. There was no privacy, and the air felt heavy all the time. At night, the only sounds were coughing, whispers, and quiet crying. During the day, survivors were forced to work without even pay. They built 20 factories and even a church with their own hands. Many worked in dangerous jobs, making clothes, bricks, and other goods for the owners to sell. Food was poor, punishments were harsh, and people were beaten for the smallest mistakes. Officially, Brother's home was supposed to help the homeless, beggars, and people in need. In reality, it was a place of abuse, pain, and death. Around 3,500 people were locked inside at all time, and more than 500 died there. Many women in Brother's home were victims of sexual abuse and were later forced to have abortion by doctors inside the facility. Can you imagine this? People were beaten all the time inside these walls, leaving pain and fear in every corner. There were kids there, teenagers, women and men. They were having families. They had life before to live. They were working. The children were studying. They had a whole life to live. They had to bring the sand, and the 14 and 15-year-olds were forced to carry sacks that weighed 20 to 30 kilograms. Listen, the real reason behind Brother's home was linked to South Korea's preparation for the 1988 Olympic Games. The government wanted to show the world that the country was clean, safe, and modern. To create this image, police were ordered to clean the streets by removing beggars, homeless people, or anyone who didn't look good for the city's image. Police officers even received rewards for every person they sent to the facility, which pushed them to take as many people as possible, not for public safety, but for their own personal gain. Oh my god, statistics show that only 10% of them were actually homeless, while the other 90% were just ordinary people. Just like I said before, they were normal people having their own life and a whole life. You think we finished? No, we didn't yet. So they were forced games at Brother's home to play. So what I'm gonna say now is all according to survivors. So the first game, the Han River Bridge, inmates were ordered to form a human bridge, standing shoulder to shoulder, lifting their legs onto the person behind them to support each other. Guards would walk across the human bridge. The moment someone collapsed or wavered, all would be stomped and beaten with wooden sticks. Second game, Hiroshima game. Victims were forced to hang upside down from their bunk beds using their feet to cling to the top bunk. Guards would stand by waiting for someone to lose grip. If anyone fell, or even if guards, grow bored, that start randomly punching stomachs until someone dropped. Games never ended, so we have about 5 games. So the third game is the kimbap rule. So people laid on mats and were violently rolled by guards. Rolled just like kimbap. There was no escape and often no conscious survival. The fourth game had balancing on gravel, so prisoners had to balance their heads on the ground, sometimes kneeling with skulls pressed against gravel. Any slight movement resulted in guards pushing their heads or noses into the stones, causing severe injuries. Last game is called the last game. The motor vehicle game was basically a mock driving simulation that guards used as, an excuse to be prisoners. So prisoners were lined up or stood in a row. A guard would pretend they were driving and shoot commands like right signal, left wheel, and stop. So when they say right signal, then hit prisoners on their right side, left wheel, then hit prisoners on their left side, stop, or other commands followed by random punches or kicks anywhere, face, legs, reps, etc. Not gonna lie guys, I felt really down when I first heard all of these informations, but there's still really much more. So victims were forced to take antipsychotic drugs, specifically chlorpromazine, which left many with permanent disabilities, like they were permanently disfigured. When they were injured, guards would cruelly pour salt onto their open wounds, turning pain into a full torture